Hi everyone, thank you for coming to day 2 of storytelling and storyboarding. So in today's session, we're going to cover primarily scripting and storyboarding and how you can use that as a very useful tool to tell your stories. So it's essentially the process that you have to go through before even get to filming your story, filming or animating or whatever medium you choose for your own story. So I'm going to quickly share my screen with you. Cool, so we're just going to continue from where we were yesterday. Please feel free to ask any questions if something doesn't make sense, or if you want me to talk through more detail with you. If you're stuck anywhere, I'm more than happy to help. So let's get started. We're going to start off with script writing. So let's assume now you're at the stage where what we said yesterday, that you know what your story is, who it involves, and what the message is. The next step after that is to get down to writing your story. So let's just jump straight through it. So what is a script? So in a few words, a script is a tool that filmmakers use to describe the story. So it can consist of describing what the actors say within a story, or what or where the location is within a story, or the action that does take place in a story. So it's an essential part in filmmaking. It is basically, well, you obviously have heard stories of actors that they would read a film script before they accept to even be part of a role within a film. So that's what we'll essentially be doing in this stage, is writing down our story, and before we even get to the stage of storyboarding and filming. By the way, I'm going to provide you with this slide again at the end of this session, because there's a lot of information to take in today, but obviously it would be best if you were to take your own time and digest everything that we talk about today. So before you even get to start writing down your script, there's some very important questions that you need to answer within yourself. So again, based on what we said yesterday, what is your character's story? And what is it that they go through as they're going through, again, what we spoke about yesterday? Are they trying to overcome a monster? Are they going through a process of realizing their dreams? Yes, it's important to always keep that in mind. Again, you need to ask yourselves, where is this story taking place? So say, for example, you decide that with your film, you want to film something within your own home, but your script suggests that your character is in a park. Well, how would you do that within your home by pretending your character's in a park? You can either do it with, again, filming yourself, pretending you're in a park with sound effects, maybe some bird sound effects, or you could, if you were to go down the animation route or the drawing route, you could draw someone in a park. So it's important to know where everything's taking place, because depending on what medium you choose, limitations do come with it. But there's always ways to be creative. So say if you wanted to film yourself being in a park in your living room, you could well do that. So there's no limitation to that. So you also need to figure out who your audience is. So say, for example, well, actually I want my audience to be people my age. So say the people age sort of like the begin 20s, early 30s. So say the platform that would be most useful to use in that case would be possibly Instagram or maybe TikTok. So it's important to know where you want your film to be displayed and who you want to watch your film. Cool. And again, making sure and ensuring that what you want your audience to feel whilst they're watching your film. Yes, so again, platforms. We're going to talk more in detail about platforms and the formats that you get to use a bit later on. But these are very important questions you need to answer. We are going to provide you with a PDF file, which you get to fill in yourselves, and by the time we get back into talking to you on Friday, you get to fill in this form as well as do your storyboard. But yes, don't worry, we'll provide you with a file so you'll be able to fill it in your own in your own time. Cool. So in terms of the script, so there really is no strict way in having a script structure. It's all has to do with how you want your script to be. To say, in this case, with this storyboard here, the filmmaker has decided that they'll be using a voiceover, so someone talking through the animation. So in this case, they've decided to use the voiceover on this part of the script structure, and also have an action text on the side too. So the two are paired with each other to sort of support each other in the storytelling aspect of things. So yeah, so once you hopefully get to a point where you're happy with your script, then the next stage would be to get into storyboarding. By the way, does anyone have any questions regarding scripts before I move on to storyboarding? Okay. Well, if you do have questions, you can always ask me by the end of the session. Cool. So yeah, moving on to storyboarding. So what is a storyboard? It is really a series of either drawings, like rough drawings, that are meant to support you in the sequence of your storytelling. So it's more like your preparation before you get into filming or animating, or again, whatever way you choose to tell your story in. It's a way for you to have everything down on paper or digitally drawn in order to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and you do this pre-preparation work before you get onto the filming. So one very important thing to consider before you start storyboarding, so say by this point you have made a decision as to where you want to display, which platform you wish to display your video on. Say for example you choose to display on YouTube. Now specifically YouTube uses the format in which we call the landscape format, and this is the or 16:9 format. And this is the predominantly the most commonly used format, and it's it allows the for the platform to display a lot of information within that space, and yeah, it's just the most commonly used format in this day and age. So yeah, but when it comes to say an Instagram story, typically you would hold your phone up like this, and obviously your audience will be scrolling through content, and this is how you primarily would be holding your phone. So when you do display content on Instagram stories, you want to ensure that your viewer gets all the information through this one, like through the screen, and in this format. And you also do find that stories on phones, or stories on Instagram as well as Snapchat, they tend to be much shorter and wittier, because unfortunately in this day and age a lot of people find themselves scrolling through phones endlessly and very quickly like losing their interest in the content and just moving on to the next. So it's important to know that, like, if I do choose to display my phone as an Instagram story, or as an Instagram or on TikTok, it has to be short, it has to be witty, it has to capture my audience attention in a way that a longer film wouldn't. Yeah, so it's again very important to keep that in mind. Does anyone have any question? Oh, actually, has anyone ever are you big social media users? Do you normally like use Instagram? Do you use Instagram stories, or do you use TikTok or Snapchat? Anyone?
Yeah, actually I use Instagram, but I'm not that used to record, but I use this portrait, you know, this format.
So you mostly use this format?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you normally just use it to post like stories or?
Stories, yes.
Stories, yes. Okay, great. Have you ever found yourself like editing a video specifically for a story? So have you ever like used an app maybe to bring a story together?
I would like to. I would really like to.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, we can definitely talk through that. Cool. Yeah, but like I said, so nowadays it's just so easy to just pick up your phone and film something. But it's important to do all the pre-work beforehand before you even get to the stage of filming, because like I said, the tool is there, but it's just how you use it and all the pre-production, as you call it, work you do beforehand. Cool. Some water. So yeah, so before even getting to the stage of, so once you say made a decision as to where your video is going to be displayed, on which platform, it's important to sort of envision, okay, is my video going to be on YouTube? Therefore it's going to take up this much space and say on a desktop computer, or if it's on a phone, then obviously it's going to make more of an impact. If it takes up the whole screen, but then again, an Instagram story, it's about knowing where it's going to be displayed, because you wouldn't want to find yourself filming something and then not reaching its full potential. Yeah, so that's it. I'm going to show you some examples of storyboards from some different films. Now, I don't want to scare anyone at the level of detail that they get to use in these storyboards, because particularly in the film industry, storyboarding is seen as more of an art form, something that like there's storyboard artists out there that specifically do this, but typically the whole purpose of a storyboard is to help you prepare for what's to come more than anything. So I don't expect anyone to have this level of drawing, unless your drawing is amazing, but I don't expect anyone to have this level of drawing. But yeah, so here's some examples of storyboards. So yeah, a storyboard can be as detailed or as rough as you wish it to be. In my opinion, storyboarding is more of a tool for me to brainstorm and just to let everything down on paper before I get to drawing the final storyboard, as I would call it. So in this case here, you see they've used, so this is from, this is from Get Out, so the recent horror film. And as you can see, there's plenty of detail in this, and it's also been digitally drawn. So I can see there's a lot of arrows suggesting the camera movements. So it really is just more of a taste of how the filming can be done before it gets to the filming. So in this case, the storyboard, once it was completed, it was passed on to the filmmakers to use as a guide before they got to even filming, because then they would know, well, in this shot, actually, he's in a bedroom. Oh God, we have to move the cameras into a bedroom. In this shot, oh, he appears to be in a black space. We need some visual effects to achieve this. So it's about preparing, knowing what work is about to come. So yeah, so in this case here, we have, I think it's from Spider-Man 2. Like, again, a lot of detail. I really admire storyboard artists that can really visualize action in their storytelling. It's not an easy thing to do at all. And they also have to figure out the different ways that a camera has to like be rigged in order to film a specific shot. So it's not just the case of them just going crazy within the storyboard. They even have to know, okay, what are the limitations? How far can I go with this storyboarding? How can I envision this story? Where is the story taking place? How big is this train? This whole action shot is happening in a train. So the storyboard artist needs to envision, right, okay, so this is the space of a train. Can I afford to make this shot? Is this realistic, like spatially, in what I'm trying to achieve here? Of course, that's an example. I do have a couple of examples here from animations specifically. This is from Peter Pan. As you might have seen, so the format here is not 16:9. in the olden days, it didn't used to be this way. It was probably closer to a square format. And in this case, it's all hand-drawn. And as you can see, it's quite roughly drawn out, but it does, I mean, if you've watched the film, you get to see how it probably progressed from this stage down to the animation stage. But this is just as an important stage for this. So I think which one? Okay, so this is yes, this is Toy Story. So you can see again the storyboard artist. So I would say this is much more detailed, but it's very it's rough, but it's quite beautiful at the same time. And the artist also uses some color to portray each probably to differentiate between the characters, so it doesn't look all so black and white. But yeah, it's this one it appears to be done digitally drawn. And yes, if anyone is interested really in seeing this whole preparation that filmmakers get to go through beforehand, I would recommend for people to get what I call the art of books. So you could go into Amazon and maybe order the art of Toy Story 2, the art of Toy Story 3, so you get to see all this amazing pre-work that goes into making a film or an animation. It's really, really interesting to see how storytellers, how artists come together to bring this final product to life. Cool. So yeah, so in terms of the storyboard structure and how it's going to fit in your template, I just wanted to say that we are going to provide you by the end of the session with templates in landscape and portrait format, so you can take it on board home and do your storyboarding on those. So you can either decide to print them, or if you can't print them, then it's totally fine if you get to use your own format. You can just draw it onto your own sort of paper, your notepads. It's not strictly, you don't strictly have to use these templates. They're just more like a guide to how you can take them on and draw your storyboards on. Cool. So moving on to the next slide. Now here I have a small sort of exercise, and it's just proof that we have a story, or say we have a shot that we want to talk about, but one shot can be done in a variety of ways. There's no one way to tell a story. So in this case, I completely made this story up, but I thought it was very interesting. So Jack woke up at 2 a.m. He walked to the fridge, grabbed a snack, and went back to bed. So I roughly did some drawings as to how this story could take place. And as you can see, both storyboards pretty much say the same story, but from completely different angles. So in the first storyboard, you can see that, well, Jack, in this case, I just named him Jack, woke up at 2 a.m. In the first shot, I just want to show that this is in fact 2 a.m. I'm sort of setting the scene and saying like, right, it's nice, it's 2 a.m. He shouldn't be awake in the first place, but here he is, wide awake. The second shot suggests that he puts on his slippers. And again, it's very interesting to be using a transition like this, because you don't necessarily have to show your character getting out of bed, but just the act of them putting their slippers on already tells a story that they're getting out of bed. Sometimes less is more when it comes to filmmaking and storyboarding, because it's yeah, one shot leading on up to another can tell the story from A to C without having to include B. That makes sense. So if it's a shot from A to C, you don't have to include B, because A to C sort of seem to transition nicely into one shot seems to transition nicely into another. So yeah, so I think the third shot is when he goes into opening the fridge, and obviously transitions straight from the bed to the slippers to the fridge. We know he's no longer in his bedroom. He's in the kitchen. We don't need to show him walking from the bedroom to the kitchen, because we know he's in a different room. That's what the shot suggests. And then we introduce them to being back in bed again, eating their snack, as you do. Yes, so the second way that I'd like to illustrate the story is using, again, trying to set the scene of Jack waking up in the middle of the night. As you can see, there's a night sky in this at the window, so automatically the viewer knows that it's nighttime and he's awake. And the next shot is him opening the fridge, so you can imagine the shot where it's completely dark and he opens the fridge and you get to see his face just peeking through. That suggests that he's in the fridge and is about to grab something. So he grabs something, and then in the next shot you get to see him sitting on his bed eating his snack, and his cat just wondering why are you up this time. So yeah, does anyone have any questions so far, by the way, because I feel I've been talking all this time? No? Okay, cool. Go ahead. This is basic. This is, by the way, a lot of information to take in. I can understand, but I feel like after the session and once you've had your own time to look through it, then it would be much more useful. But I just want to show you a quick example of my personal
Adriana,
process.
one
Yeah,
question.
go ahead. Yes.
I was thinking, if we have a climax of the story, should it be somehow put it in the middle, or how can we know that this is the climax? What point to put in the storyboard to underline it?
Oh, the climax. So the climax completely depends on you and how your story evolves, how the climax of events happen in your story. So it's not strictly to say. So what kind of story specifically are you thinking? Do you have a story in mind that maybe I could give you some guidance on?
No, I was just thinking, what do we show? Because here we show the actions that follows another one, but it's like, I don't know what would be the message from these pictures.
Oh yes, I mean, to be honest with you, in this case, it was more, for me, this is more of an example of a shot or a scene within a story. It's not necessarily a message, it's just more like to illustrate that a story can be told in a variety of ways by using different shots and different angles. Yeah, it's not necessarily, there's no climax in the story unless the climax is Jack getting his snack, but it's not related to what we were speaking yesterday about the climax of your story overall. This is just a specific shot, just an example of how a story can be illustrated in just one way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for explanation.
Okay, no worries, thank you. Cool. So let's move on to the next one. So yep, so redglow the Wonder Foundation approached me and they asked me to create an animation for them. And I pretty much had to go through the same process myself. The first step was they provided me with a script that they wish to use as a voiceover. So in my case, I had to hire a voiceover artist so they can talk through the animation whilst the animation was taking place. So once they provided me, with the first voiceover, the first script, it came to my attention that the way the script was written wasn't evoking as much of a positive message as I was hoping for it to do. So I had to make some adjustments to the script to make it more, like you said, this climax that we just spoke about. So the script suggests that, well, this is the reality of the situation of where women are in terms of confidence and their careers, and this is the problem, and this is the solution, and redglow is amazing and it can bring amazing change to the world. So the script that I had to reiterate illustrates that sort of line of, this is the problem, this is the action we took, this is how amazing it can be, and this is the resolution. So yeah, so once I took on board the script, and once everyone was happy with the script, the next step was to illustrate the storyboard. But I obviously didn't go ahead and illustrate the final storyboard as is. I used my notepad, and I just roughly illustrated the storyboard on my notepad with stickmen, because that's how rough it needs to be, because it really is just a guide for you and knowing what you want to draw. It doesn't, and it's obviously it depends how you could really go through 5-6 rounds of rough storyboards, but as long as you get to the stage where, okay, you know what, I'm happy with this now, and I can move on to doing a cleaner storyboard and use that as guide for my animation, my film again. Great. So once the rough storyboard was down, I moved on to the clean storyboard. So this is so in my case, I use Adobe Illustrator. I don't know if you're familiar with Adobe products, but Adobe Illustrator is a program in which you can illustrate vector illustrations. Now, I obviously, I understand like not everyone is familiar with this type of software, but and I would expect to see people using like drawing more than anything for their storyboards, but that's just my personal preference in storyboarding, because I get to illustrate my characters and my environments and everything at the same time, as well as using the, and I also have to give this to my clients. So in this case, I had to pass on this to Wonder Foundation, and in order for them to know what's going on the storyboard, I had to ensure that the storyboard was as clean as possible and not too rough. But yeah, that was my sort of story in preparing my storyboards in order for the clients to get to review it, and once they're happy with it, I can go ahead and start animating. Yeah, so talking earlier about telling a story from a different angle, the great thing with animation is that there really is no limitations as to what you can do. So in this case, I wanted to use visual metaphors. So when I say visual metaphors, is I'm trying to use every cell, like every illustration had to be supported by a piece of voiceover, and the voiceover, when the voiceover was to talk about something, I wanted to emphasize it with my illustrations. So a good example is, so in this specific cell here, the voiceover suggests that women start off with great confidence here when it comes to their school, but once they transition into their careers, they do find themselves feeling more incompetent. So I wanted to use a strong visual to show this. So my first idea was to illustrate, in this case, my character sitting on a desk in a dark room on a spotlight. So that for me is a very strong visual of my character feeling lonely, or feeling left out, or feeling very scared and small in this world where she has to really work hard in order to make herself more known. Yeah, so we can move on to the next storyboard. Yeah, so again, when I got to, so in order to illustrate the story, like I said, it starts off quite neutral, and it's a little bit negative. I had to sort of show my audience, so this is the problem. So I tried to keep my colors quite dark and quite dreary, and made my character look small and quite scared within this world. But then when it starts sort of getting, I think the script sort of transitions from slightly negative to more hopeful, I had to make the visuals stronger and make my character look stronger and look like they're being empowered by redglow. So I used a variety of different ways to do this, including strong visuals of, say, for example, here, the script suggests, talks about mental support. So in that case, it's very easy to just use two hands that interlock within each other, because that itself symbolizes support. So one hand holding on to another. You don't necessarily have to show a mentor, like say another character, but you can just show the hands, and that's enough to suggest that yes, I'm being supported in this journey. Yep, so the next storyboard again suggests the script talks about women thriving in collaborative environments. Again, I used my character in the middle of the scene and opening their hands, and then two hands reaching out to her, one from either side, and that shows collaboration and people interlocking together to share their skills and share their experiences together. That's how it worked. Cool. And just as a word of just encouragement, I don't want to put people under pressure into thinking that you have to be amazing at drawing to be able to storyboard, because at the end of the day, it's all down to how you interpret it. It's just as a guide for you to do before you get to start filming, and it's a great way to get to practice your composition skills, as you would. So yeah, I think that's the end of like the slides, but Cami, is there anything else that we would like to add on top of this?
I thought it would be nice if you can show us the beginning of your animation.
Oh yes. Yes, so I'm currently in the process of animating redglow's animation, so based on this storyboard, and I would like to show you my progress with it. So can you see my screen now? Can you see the animation? Cami?
No, I can't see it.
Oh, okay, hold on. That's it. So this is just a progress. I haven't, yeah, just a progress.
Did you know that on average, women are doing better in their education compared to their male counterparts? This changes once they transition into their careers. What do you think causes this change? Let's take a deep dive into this subject matter. Throughout their time at school and university, young women do a lot of volunteering. They give themselves to their communities and good causes. They gain transferable skills, connections, and real-life experience that they can use at work. But often, women don't have the support to reflect on their achievements. As a result, they are reluctant to seek growth in the workplace and are often overlooked. A major issue for young women is confidence. So many women have what we call imposter syndrome, making them feel undeserving of their success.
Cool. Yes, so by the end of this session, so I suppose like the next steps, Cami, would be we will provide everyone with the templates for the storyboard templates.
Yeah.
And the list of questionnaires, so they can help them support their shaping their story.
So yes, we're going to send you a list of questions that you saw on one of the first slides. So the point of this is to help you kind of pin down your story and, you know, prepare for it well before you start storyboarding. And then we're also going to give you some storyboard templates so you can have a go at telling a story that you'd like to tell through video. What would be great is if everyone could think of a story they'd like to tell. So this can be your story, so it could be your story of volunteering. It could be a story about someone that you find inspiring. So it can be really anything. And I think, you know, obviously we have an amazing illustrator and animator on board at Wonder to help us with the redglow video. But you can also, you know, create amazing effects through just you know, paper puppets filmed with just your phone. So really simple devices to create an animation, or just taking some videos on your phone. You can do testimonies on your phone, video classes. So, you know, there's a lot you can do with, you know, really simple devices to make a great looking video. You know, even a voiceover, you can do it yourself on your phone. You know, you don't need fancy equipment, is what I'm saying. So with those storyboards that we're going to give you, it'd be great if you can have a go at starting to put together the story that you want to tell about redglow, hopefully, because we're all going to be creating videos about redglow, so that we can come back on Friday and have a look at everyone's ideas. We can discuss them. Adriana will be there to give you tips, you know, so tips on what to do, what the next steps are for your video, how to improve it, how to improve your script. And then on Friday, we'll be looking at, you know, Adriana will be giving you tips on using some software, so simple software, and then also on creating videos with maybe stop motion. So lots of different things for you to kind of go on after these workshops and create amazing videos. Well, I'll put all this in an email with the recording from today. So if you need to have a look again and have a look at the slides, I'll also provide a PDF of the slides so you can take your time to read over everything. Yeah, so I tomorrow it'll be great if you can put 1 or 2 hours aside to do this, and then we'll have our session on Friday. But I think if anyone has any questions, we still have a bit of time, so anything at all you can ask away. Or maybe you can tell us about the story you'd like to choose to tell.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You know the 3-act curve that you
Structure. Yes.
Yeah. Do you like have that all already kind of in the script? But what I mean to say is, like, do you transfer that somehow into the storyboard? Like, do you write like this will be Act 1, or and this is Act 2 and this is Act 3? Or
This is completely up to you. Like, if you feel more comfortable with dividing your storyboard in 3 acts, because that makes you more confident in knowing that your storyboard or your script is more structured that way, then obviously you can feel free to do that, because my intention of yesterday was to provide you with these tools that you could obviously use, and if you do get to use them, then great. But yeah, it's completely up to you if you want to add it to your storyboard. There's no one right way to storyboard. It really is completely up to you, and if you do get to use it, then great.
Cool, thank you.
No worries. Does anyone have any more questions?
I have one. For example, this story is very good because it shows the problems that the women might have. Where do you find ideas? What is the most important thing, or what to show in pictures? Because sometimes we have a lot of ideas, we have brainstorming, but after that you have to choose those that are more significant.
Yes, that's a great question. Really is, again, it's completely down to you. That there is, I think it's important to just question, like, so I want to, I have this shot, and what is the best way to illustrate or to show what's happening in the shot in a way that's more impactful and stronger. Like, if I were you, I would possibly ask for people's opinions on what they feel is stronger. So if you were to show your storyboard to someone that has no recollection of what you're working on, and if they were to look at your storyboard, ask them what they think or what they feel is the strongest shot, or what gives them them a stronger feel for the shot, or how they understand that the drawing better. I think it's important to, I mean, it's good to assume that, okay, this shot is, or this, the way that I want to illustrate this scene is strong, but if your audience doesn't think that way, then it's maybe it doesn't work in the first place. So I would ask for people's feedback if I were you, because it's good to always gain some insight into what your audience thinks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Any more questions?
I was just going to say, you could bring a story that you have from one of your brainstorming sessions tomorrow, and maybe we can go through it and try and figure out, you know, what would be the best way to tell it, for instance. If it can be helpful.
Are you talking about
to you,
Friday, Cami?
Oh yeah, Friday, sorry.
Friday.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe bring an example of a story that you've, you know, tried to tell in the past, and we can all take a look and discuss it Friday.
Yeah, so if you feel very stuck with your story on how to illustrate it, then I'd be more than happy for us to discuss it on Friday. I think it's just important to know that everyone has a thing and has a go at trying, but I would be more than happy on Friday to give you some tips, and any more tips even after the whole workshop sessions.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Is there, oh yeah, no worries. Is there anything else we need to add before, Cami?
Sorry, I was mute. I don't think so. Well, obviously I'll just send you everything this evening, and if you have any questions, you can send me an email and ask away.
Yes, just a question.
Yeah. Hi.
We are considering all the stories, and it's about people. I'm working in another charity in Madrid, and I'm thinking about to tell a story about a project. For example, not a story about people. If I'm talking more about how to sell a project to Europe, imagine. So you can also, I think, tell a story with a storyboarding with the idea. And I think for me in that moment, it could be more simple. And at the same time, it's more practical for me, because in that moment I'm presenting projects. So yeah. It could be another idea.
Okay, yeah, I mean, your story doesn't necessarily have to involve people or a person. It's more like you could choose to show your story with just, you know, text or film shots outside or whatnot. It doesn't...
For example, how to do a project about to improve education at a school with STEM issues, for example. And you can use a story telling what do you want with this project. Improve education, what will be your tools.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's more abstract, but
yeah.
You need to start with the idea. And with storyboarding, it will be easier.
Yeah. So are you thinking of filming it with your phone?
Yes, but it will be easy. Eh?
Pardon?
But I think it must be easy, an easy shot with easy shots and.
Yeah. So say, so are you thinking of filming it in your home?
Yes. Or right now, it must be at home.
It must be at home, yes. So that's not a problem. It can be, you can be very creative. I mean, it's a limitation of to what we're in at the moment with COVID, but you can be very creative. So one thing that I would suggest is to say you are, in your script, you say you're talking about STEM subjects. And it would be very, so it would be very interesting to see. So think about locations in your home that could support what your script is saying. So say if you're talking about education, so say if you have a desk in your home, you can set up the books in a way that suggests that. Or say if your script says, oh, STEM subjects have been going up recently, and you can suggest that with books just stacking up. So symbolize, so use objects in your home to like visual metaphors in support of what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, or you can draw things, you can draw puppets, like as in like cut out puppets, and you cut them out and you can place them around your home, and you can I mean, if you were to say you want to tell a story of a pupil going into school, you can literally create a school out of books and just suggest that a paper puppet is going into school, and then film it this way. So you take stills of the paper puppet, and that would be your story. So it doesn't always have to involve a person. You can be very creative with it within the space that you have in your home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yes, I would think about it. It's an idea.
Or say if you have a very important word that you mentioned, so it's like STEM subjects. So you would you would print out STEM, as in like the word STEM, and then you would maybe place it in part of your room or within a page, or you could get someone to open a book and then you get to see STEM like within the book. So there's very different ways that you can approach it. So yeah, but if you do need help, I can definitely give you some tips.
Okay, because with the software you will give to us, it is easy to combine photos or pictures with drawings.
Yes, so tomorrow, by the end of tomorrow, we're going to give you some tips on apps and software, like specifically apps, because we want to obviously give everyone the opportunity to get to do this project, and using an app on the phone is the easiest way to do that. So yeah, we'll give you a whole list of apps that you can use for it. I understand there might be limitations, but they're actually quite powerful. Yeah, they're very powerful. But for example, I use Adobe After Effects to animate, and that is a very, very advanced software for animators. But I don't necessarily think that is a limitation to telling a story, because you can tell a story with limited software. You don't have to have the most amazing software to tell a story, as long as you have your own way in telling the story in a way. What do you think about this, Cami, in terms of like, you know, using phone apps, sort of like?
I think it's fantastic. I'm not a professional. I don't want to be, but the first step is to sell an idea. And if you have easy tools like, you know, as apps, it could be fantastic. So the first step.
I mean, it could be the case that you get to film yourself talking, and as you're talking, other things are happening on the side. Like I said, you could be working with paper puppets, or you could be just moving your camera within your room to suggest something. Yeah, there's some very creative ways you can get through it without having to use fancy software.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Great. No worries. Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Cool, great. I would suspect, well, it's time now. It's coming towards the end of the session, but I'm very looking forward to everyone showing us their ideas on Friday, and hopefully the first two sessions have been helpful in you taking them on board and applying them onto your own storyboards. So yeah, it would be very, very interesting to see what everyone comes up with.